Hi everyone. I just wanted to make a video on what worked for me when studying for the MCAT. And just saying that this is what worked for me. And I know even when for the MHS, we all have different study techniques and different learning styles. So I just want to make sure that if you follow this, that there's for it not to come back to me if it didn't work for you. This is just what worked for me, and I want to share what I did I said my study plan was for 3 months, but I was also working 3 days a week. So I'll show you what I did for each step of the way. So let's go on. So the materials that I used, I think UWorld is very underrated. It's really good product that I would have recommended if it wasn't already given to MHS students for free, and the AMC bundle. So if it's not already self-explanatory, the exam that you will be taking, the MCAT, is by the AMC, and that's why I'd recommend using their testing materials, because the questions that you will see through this will be very similar on the exam. I have other comments on that. There are materials that are much older, for instance. The practice exams, some of the practice exams have been out for several years, but the current MCAT exams, in my opinion, felt a bit harder. So I will say some materials feel a bit soft, and so that's why I liked using certain third-party exams as well. So it would show the level of difficulty that you will actually see on test day. But back to the AMC bundles. So I got the full bundle, and that included the exams, practice exams, and there's also these new exams that came out. One is scored, one is unscored. So for an unscored exam, you can still score it yourself. There's a calculator that you can just look up on Google, like scoring the AMC sample exam, and you'll just enter your raw numbers, and then it'll tell you your range, based on what you did for each section, and then the question packs, and then section bank. So if you were to prioritize anything, if you have time to do all of it, that's wonderful. But if you had to choose between the section bank and the question packs, I would definitely say do section banks. Prioritize section banks because they are better quality questions and they are more difficult. Yeah. And then the last time so I've taken this exam twice, and the second time I took med school coach, and then I did Altius. The first time I did Blueprint, so that's why I'd say I'd recommend Blueprint as well. So to give you some feedback, I think med school coach is very underrated. I would say from each of these third-party exams, med school coach, Altius, and Blueprint, I personally think med school coach was very similar to, or the most similar to, what the exams were on the actual on my actual test day. I also took a January exam, like you guys will. So I highly recommend it, and it's pretty underrated. I took Blueprint, and I just want to say Blueprint is one of those exams where when they say, oh, practice something that's exponentially harder, so then something will feel very easy or soft on the for the real thing. That is what Blueprint's like. Their chem phys section is super math heavy, and so in my opinion, I would run out of time because you don't have you don't have the freedom to use a calculator, and so doing things by hand, I felt a bit slower. So their questions are for the chem phys section was much harder, but it was good practice because I think some of the AMC practice exams are a bit soft. So doing blueprint and then going into the AMC practice exams could be a very good preparation. So it'll feel like a breeze. And then Altius. I did Altius because I had already done blueprint. I thought some sections are very well done, but like I didn't like the car section for Altius. But I've also have done practice exams for Kaplan and exam crackers, but I don't recommend it, so which is why I did not put on this list. Okay, the last time I took this, the last time I prepped, so the second time where I did very well, this is the exam length, or the exam full length order. Why, if you will notice that I didn't do the med school coaches and Altius exams in order, it's because my tutor at the time told me that normally the best exams that they make is the full length 1 and 2, which is why I started in reverse, so that as I'm progressing through my exam preparation, I'm starting with, you know, the least best exam and then leading up to like their very well-made exam. So which is why I did in that order. I don't think it really makes a difference. That is just how I did it. So I started off with my first exam I did was AMC, just so it was more like for feelers. And then I did all of my third-party exams and then the month leading into it, I was just doing AMCs. Okay. Oh, I also messed up. I meant to take Med School Coach 3, but I took number 1, and then I had to switch it. So that was a mistake, but and then I skipped Altius 1 even though it was on my schedule because I took several days to review Altius 2, so I didn't have time to review to take Altius 1. Okay. How I feel about content review. So I personally did not have a traditional content review phase. This is very different than my first time taking the Mcat. The first time I took the Mcat, I was like, oh, I was reading books, I was reading materials online on what I thought was my weak points, which was I thought was physics and whatever. But I actually strongly recommend not doing a traditional content review because your time is limited, and so I would suggest strongly just being an active learning in this entire time. So for me, my content review was strictly doing UWorld problems and then reviewing them to fill in the gaps, because reading something and trying to actually retain it, it would just go through one ear and then out the other. But active learning and doing passive practice problems, you're actually understanding where your content gaps really are and then reviewing it, because UWorld gives the best explanations. They have the best explanations, and but paired with the best like images, diagrams, I was able to understand the full image. And so that is what I did. And so afterwards, I whatever I would get wrong and whatever I would get right, sometimes I would get a question right by, you know, simple guessing. I still want to review that content just to make sure I truly understand it. I would make Anki cards. I don't know if everyone in class uses Anki cards, but that was something I started using when I was preparing for the MCAT, and why I recommend Anki over Quizlet. I don't get me wrong, I love Quizlet. I used it in undergrad, and I used it a bit for our anatomy practical, but for the MCAT, you want spaced repetition because you don't want to make cards on Quizlet that's like 500 cards and try to do 500 cards in a day. When it's space repetition, so if you see a card in 2 days, you say, oh, I understand it, so it's good, or you won't see it for another 4 days. So the number of questions won't, number of cards that you have won't actually pile up if you are good about doing them on a daily basis. That is why I recommend it, and I'll show you what is a good Anki card and what is a bad Anki card. And these are all cards that I've made, and I have learned what works for me. Okay. Oh, and then setting a schedule. So I have a screenshot of what my schedule looked like, but before even doing before my entire MCAT journey, I had a schedule, and so I made sure to stick by it. I did modify it a bit. I did get sick, so I did less problems. But even I went on a 2-day ski trip, and I put that on my schedule, and that doesn't mean I took the entire time off, because I did Anki cards on the 4-hour drive up, and then in the mornings I was still able to do Anki cards, and then on the way back, on drive back, I still did Anki. So I didn't feel guilty for taking the time off, because there was still some time to do review. And then this was okay. Okay, so what are good Anki cards? A good Anki card will be something brief, and so you don't have to spend a minute reading the question and then thinking about like a fill in the blanks. So this is just, the question is simple, the answer is simple, so that you would only spend at most 10 seconds at a card, so you can go through as many cards as possible, and you can make associations very well. When it's quick and very brief, like how to find the number of stereoisomers in a compound, it is a simple equation. And then amino acids that are ketogenic, I wrote like a little reminder. Oh, it's the 2 L's, leucine, lysine. And then molecular geometry, I put an image and then the name, seesaw. You want to keep it as simple as possible so it's not convoluted in your brain and when you're trying to make associations while learning. Here's an example of bad cards that I made. So a bad card would be one, this is something I was guilty of doing. I would put questions that I got wrong from my practice exams into my Anki. And the problem with that is that you're not learning the trend of ionization by putting this question. You're actually just going to memorize the answer and not think about why the answer was why it is that this is the correct answer. So instead of actually, what I should have done is, instead of putting an actual question in my Anki card, I should have put, oh, what is the trend for ionization across the periodic table? And then the second thing that I would refrain from doing is making very long Anki cards, such as the one on the right. You want to make it as brief as possible. Like if we compare this card on the right to these cards, these are much easier and softer on the eyes, and you can make quick associations. Whereas this, it's like reading a paragraph. It'll make it more difficult for learning concepts and making associations. Okay, tips and tricks. So not having a calculator is pretty scary. It took me a long time to wrap my head around that. But the math, a few things. So even when you're making calculations that might not be whole numbers, you should round up or round down the values, and so that you can make the math as simple as possible. And even when you have to do things like logs, all your logs on MCAT are going to be base 10, so it shouldn't be that daunting. And then things like this for the cosine and sine. This was a great trick that I learned. Instead of trying to memorize this table, which was terrible, daunting. I learned the tip or the trick of this triangle. So if you draw this triangle, you can, if you understand this triangle, so it's the angle here is 30, 60, 90. So if you remember to go 30, 60, 90 going clockwise, and then understanding the values of 1, 2, 3. So that's counterclockwise. If we start here and go 1, 2, rad 3, that's counterclockwise, and then starting lowest to highest, that would be clockwise. And if you can memorize this triangle, which wouldn't be as difficult as memorizing this chart, you'll be able to get the same values. And so, if you try to find sine of 30, sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse, it would just be 1/2. Because sine of 30, so opposite is 1. And then over hypotenuse, which is, this is the hypotenuse, so it'd be 2. So if you know this triangle, it's much easier to get all the values you need for sine, cosine, and tangent. Then it's much easier than memorizing this chart. So understanding tricks like that really helped me for when I was doing the Chem Phys section on the MCAT. The second thing, I wanted to learn as many mnemonics as possible, and what I did was I look up this, it's Med School Coach's YouTube channel for mnemonics, and it's great, honestly. It doesn't cover everything, but it covers very big concepts that that you definitely want to cover for the MCAT. Let's see. Okay, my schedule. Okay, so you can see this is when I started studying for the MCAT, and my content review was only UWorld and then making an Anki card of the questions I got wrong. And what I did up here, so for UWorld, I put the number of questions there are in the entire section bank, or in the entire bank here. So, okay, I don't know actually what I don't have UWorld now, but let's say there were 400 questions just within biology, and then yada yada for biochemistry, general chemistry, OChem. As I was doing them each day, I would subtract it from my UWorld section. So it actually was like a good motivator. It's like, oh, I only have this much left to get this done. And then I did the same thing for the AMC bundle, but I didn't subtract from them. And then I put some other things on there, like the practice exams, some explanations. I put things I needed to, my goal was time management for certain sections, like cars time management was difficult for me. Must review topics, and then strategies that I would develop. Yeah. Okay, and then this is my schedule as we're, deeper into past the content review and pretty deep into my schedule. And so as you can see here, I only had a 1 week dedicated psych soc week because I was a psych major, and it was my highest section the first time I took it, so I wasn't that worried. I felt like I didn't have to focus that hard on it. But that was me. But I put all of my exams that I was going to take, my full lengths on here, and then the reviews. Okay, so I'm going to take full length 1, AMCFL 1 here, and then I had 2 days to review it. And then you can see I didn't really have dedicated rest days, but you're on a short time period, and I would recommend, if you listen to yourself, if you think you need like a half day or a few hours, definitely do it, and try to maintain good mental health, if I exercise, it was only in the evening, so I can use, you know, the mornings to to do my studying, but try to avoid burnout, especially in January when we start school again, because I felt burnout while working and studying for the MCAT. Unfortunately, like in the 2 weeks leading to my exam, I felt the burnout. So try to avoid that and have good mental health, um, and try to exercise and do things that are rejuvenating for yourself. But I will share a copy of my schedule with you guys. So if you guys want to make a copy and use it for yourself, go ahead. This really helped me. I even scheduled in, you know, my Mammoth trip. Um, so I knew exactly what I'd wake up and I knew exactly what I had to do the next day. It wasn't like, oh, what should I do today? It was all set out for me. So I highly recommend it. And understanding this was very important. So it's one thing, it's like, okay, you get a question wrong, and then you take practice exams like, oh, why am I getting this? Why am I getting this many problems wrong? Or, and then I would recommend taking a big dive deep. This is what I did because I made an Excel sheet of and for each section. This may or might not be feasible for you, but I had to do this because I understood how much time I was really wasting on a single problem. So I broke it down. One, the time I would spend. So if I spend more than 90 seconds on a problem, that was a big no-no. So like some of these questions I spent, like this one I spent 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That's a lot of time wasted. So I put it on there just so it was kind of like a reality check. And then I broke down why I got certain questions wrong, like not understanding or misread it, or I didn't pick up a certain clue within the passage or in the question stem itself, or maybe it was a content gap. So I kind of like micromanaged myself by doing this, and I needed this because uh, it was like hard for me to understand why I wasn't performing well, even though I felt like I fully grasped a concept. So I strongly recommend like it's very important to do as many problems as possible to get exposure, but it's also important to understand why you get a question wrong and trying to fill in that gap. Okay, what my day looked like. So I would start out my day with I was very stressed during that time because I was working and studying at the same time. So I started off each day with listening to this YouTube video on positive daily affirmations, and I would repeat it. Sounds really corny, but it really helped bring my heart rate down, and I think it helped me mentally because I have imposter syndrome, and I didn't think I was capable of doing well on this exam. So I forced myself to do that. I even listened to it as I was driving to my exam the day of, and for me, it helped. Okay, the other thing is simulating my practice like actual test days. This was hard for me because I am a night owl and I have a tendency to like to stay up until 3 a.m. to study, but I had to make that change for the MCAT because the actual MCAT starts at 8 a.m. And so I made sure I was at my desk doing practice problems by 8 a.m. Just so I was used to that schedule and wasn't really groggy or tired the day of the exam. That was a big change I had to make from taking it the first time, because the first time I was exhausted and tired the day of the exam because I would stay up at late studying. So I especially did this the day of my practice exams. And then the day of my practice exams, I tried to simulate it as close as possible to an actual exam. So this might be hard, but I would make my lunches and pre-pack my breakfasts. And so, you get you get two 15-minute breaks and you get a 30-minute break. So I would not have a lunch where I would put it in the microwave or whatever. You don't have a microwave on the actual MCAT exam. So I'd pre-pack myself a lunch. So this is kind of like a me thing, but I made sure I ate the same lunch each practice exam, and I had the same breakfast and I had the same snacks. And you're not allowed to have drinks in the testing room. So I did not have my water bottle or my coffee by my desk while I was taking the exam. I made sure I was simulated as close as possible to the practice exam. So I was not affected those little mental things that might affect you the day of the exam. And I say this because I've done this myself. Do not cheat yourself and pause the exam. One, to, take a restroom break because you can't hold it, or especially for the AMC exams. If you want to look up the answers to any of the AMC exams or explanations, you can do it. So I've definitely done this myself where I was like, oh, I think it's this answer, but I'm between B and C, and I've straight up paused the exam and I've looked up the answers while taking the exam. Do not do that because you're cheating yourself. And if you're if you see you're performing very well on your practice exams, but you're not performing well, you don't perform well on the actual exam, and you cheated yourself, that is why don't act surprised or don't whatever that. I'm saying it because I've done this myself, and so try to avoid that. Do not pause your exams. Do not try to cheat yourself, and just try to be as genuine as possible. Okay. So other things I did. I bought this whiteboard. You could just look up AMC whiteboard. Why I did that is because this is what's going to be given to you on the actual exam date. So whenever I was taking practice exams, I was using this and the kind of crummy whiteboard marker that they would give you. They give you two, and so this really helped me. I did everything to help myself mentally get used to the exam, and so this is what I would do. This is what I would use when taking practice exams at home. And I use earplugs as well because they give you that on the exam. For anyone who also likes to chew gum, I'm super into chewing gum when I study because I don't know, but you're not allowed to chew gum on the exam. But what they do allow you is to bring in cough drops without a wrapper. So that is what I did. If anyone is interested in doing that. And then I didn't do this personally, but having a timer to understand what. So I'll have the breakdown. I think it's the next slide, but for time management, this might help some people by having a timer beside them. There is a timer on your exam itself, but sometimes you kind of overlook it and you don't pay attention. So a timer might help. So understanding time management. So this is a breakdown for each section: CP, cars, biochem, psych-soc. And so just I had little landmarks for myself at how much time I should spend for each section. So cars, let's start with cars. It's 59 questions and you get 95 minutes. And so oopsie, sorry, it's 90 minutes. And then sorry, these two I switched. The cars is 90 minutes, and psych-soc is 95 minutes. And so if you do the math, you should only be spending 10 minutes per passage. And so that's how you can kind of keep yourself accountable. It's like, oh, by the end of the first passage, you should only be at 10 minutes. Okay, and the second passage, 20 minutes. And that is how you keep track of where I should be as I'm moving along, is that you should only there's no standalones. And so you should only be spending maximum 10 minutes. And so however you want to allocate that for spending 4 or 5 minutes reading the passage and then 4 to 5 minutes doing questions. But that is kind of how I would keep track of my time. And then for the other sections, it's a bit more difficult because you have passage questions, but then you have standalones. But the main landmark that I made for myself is by the halfway point. So around the question 30, I should be, or sorry, if I'm halfway through the exam at 47 minutes, I should be at least, I should have at least done 30 problems. I will say the standalone questions, you should be saving more time. So you should only be spending like max, definitely less than 90 seconds. So if you spend 45 seconds and then you have 45 seconds for the other questions. So if you spend a lot of time on the passage questions for CP, CARS, or Psych Soc, then hopefully you can speed through the standalones and still be on time. So that is what I did to keep track of for time management. Okay, the day of the exam. I recommend arriving early to find the actual testing center, and then checking in, finding the nearest restroom so that you can go to during break times. For ladies, the first time I took my exam, I went in with a scrunchie and they did not allow it, and I freaked out because I like to take my exam with my hair up. So I had to cut my scrunchie open to use the elastic to tie my hair. So I'd recommend not going in with a scrunchie. And I don't know how they feel about the giant hair clips, but just have a hair tie just in case. And then this is a big thing, keep track of your breaks. So yes, you have two 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute break, but it takes a lot of time, unfortunately, for them. You have to scan your hand. They make you pull out your pockets and like lift your hair, and then you have to remove your glasses and they check that so it's not like I don't know, like the technology glasses. And then you have your stuff in a locker. So if you want to get a snack, you have to open a locker, blah, blah, blah. So, and you have to do that when you leave the exam and enter. So I would recommend keep track of the clock, make sure what time it is when you finish your exam, I'm going to finish that section, and because it's 15 minutes from when you finish that section. And then, yeah, just a recommendation. And good luck. I think every one of you can do well on this exam, especially you have the background of MHS behind you. I think I wish I had MHS going into this exam. And yeah, because I was not a science major. And if I was not a science major and I could teach myself the content gaps to do like good enough to get above a 500, I think each and every one of you can do it. So good luck. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can try to help you as best as possible, especially for people who have not used Anki before. I could definitely set up a Zoom session or whatever to teach you guys. Just let me know. But good luck, everyone.